How's it going, everybody? I'm kind of excited to make this video because there's something that I want to touch on that I have never seen covered on any other video of plants on YouTube. So I've went over this before. This plant, you can see on the older leaves, they're nice and big and healthy, and the newer leaves are all distorted and growing in weird, and that's from herbicide damage. And I've touched on that before. So it can come from contaminated mulch, contaminated soil, compost. In this case, I'm 99.99% sure it's from the compost. It's cow manure compost. They probably were fed hay that was contaminated with herbicide. But anyway, this is something that can happen very commonly. And a lot of times people will just get rid of the plant. And I wanted to go over some options of what you could do to actually get rid of the herbicide. So, of all the research I've done, I've basically seen about three main ways that people are able to successfully get rid of herbicide that's causing this damage to your plants. So the first one is called leaching. At least that's what I've seen it called. The second thing is just replacing the soil entirely. And the third thing is activated carbon, adding activated carbon or charcoal to it. Now, with this plant, it's obviously a big, large, mature plant. So replacing all the soil, and by the way, you can do like combinations of those things. It's not just one or the other. You can do 2 or 3 out of those things. And generally, as a side note, they are accompanied by a lot of trimming. So, you trim it down to just 1 liter or 2 liters with a lot of the suckers and extra foliage trimmed off, because when you do this stuff to your plants, they can go through very severe transplant shock. So when you're doing that, like let's say you're completely removing and replacing all the soil, that's going to send your plant into a severe transplant shock. And if you get rid of a lot of the stems and foliage, that's less for the root system to support, and it makes it easier for the plant to survive that transplant shock. So again, pruning it is something you'll want to decide if you want to do on your own. That's just a side thing, an extra thing you can do in addition to this stuff. But I would say that's most pertinent to when you're replacing all the soil. Because when you're replacing all the soil, that's when you're going to be disturbing the roots a lot. And when you disturb the roots a lot, of course, it sends it into transplant shock. So in this case, like let's say I was doing it to this one, I would probably want to take it down to 1 liter, get rid of all the extra suckers, and just have the minimum amount of, like let's say, get rid of this or this and have the other one coming up, and just have like 1 liter, one main stalk or stem, and get rid of all the suckers. Let's see if I can find a sucker here. Like for example, this right here. And you would just have as small of an amount of plant as possible for the root system to support. Now, this is, like I say, a big mature plant. It would be hard to do that, but just to kind of walk you guys through it, I mean, as if it's not really obvious already, in addition to that pruning, you would just remove the plant from the soil, be gentle with it, lay it down on its side or whatever, and rinse off with a hose, probably on the soaker setting, something gentle but has a lot of water flow. And which, by the way, I just saw, I don't know what that is, a bunch of eggs on there or something. So you would use the hose to remove all the soil, every bit of it, completely gone. Get new uncontaminated soil. Try to spread the roots out carefully in that soil in sort of the same spread out, sort of upside down tree pattern, for lack of better words. You don't want your roots all clumped together in a ball. You want them kind of spread out like a tree, almost like the top of a tree. And you'd replace all the soil. So that, again, that would work much better and easier if the plant wasn't so large and mature. But that is one option. And believe me, I have done this before in similar situations. Oh, and by the way, you would also want to get rid of all your flowers. Now, it does send the plant into quite a transplant shock, but when it comes down to losing your plant, or not losing it, you're trying to save the plant, I'd rather it go through transplant shock than just die entirely. So as I said, if it wasn't so big, take the soil out, dump it out, rinse it all off to where the roots are just pristine. Put all new soil in, spread the roots out in there, fill the soil up just as it was, as close to how it was as you can. Water it in, fertilize it, whatever. Get rid of all the extra leaders and suckers and flowers and all that. And then basically you just have a skeleton plant, just one stalk or one stem with the main side branches like these, not this, but these. And that's basically it. That's all you would have above the soil and all new soil at the bottom. So that's one option that you can use, of course, for less mature plants. The second option would be leaching it all out, just watering the absolute crud out of it. Now, this is not going to work probably as well, or maybe at all, if you've got in-ground plants, because the in-ground, the ground, the soil, in-ground garden, whatever, can only it can only absorb so much water before it just starts pooling. Whereas if you had it in a container like this that's free draining, it works a lot better and a lot easier. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't work at all for an in-ground garden, but it's going to be harder to do. You're going to have to water it, wait for it to drain for a long time, keep doing it. Whereas this, I could fill this up completely and it would drain out in no time. So I'll show you that just as a little visual aid. Now, see how I'm just absolutely filling it up? That's what you want. You want ridiculous amounts of water, but make sure that your soil is very free draining, and it doesn't matter if it overflows a little bit. See, I'll just pause it for a second here. Okay, this is what I'm talking about right here. See how it's just almost full? But see how the drainage holes are literally just shooting water out? That's what you want. You're forcefully leaching out this herbicide. So you see, that was totally full. That was almost up to the very edge just a few seconds ago. And see how fast it's draining down? I mean, it is just pouring out of that drainage hole. And I've got drainage holes all the way around. But that's what you want. You want very free draining soil. Soil that, still retains moisture, but when you fill it up like that, or like, let's say there's a heavy rain, it just comes out at a very fast speed. Look, already all we have is like one little puddle right there. So just watering the absolute heck out of it and letting it leach out that herbicide. Now, unfortunately, this is probably something you're going to have to do several times, but you're watering your plants probably every day or every other day anyway. You're watering them often in the heat of summer. So all you're doing is just watering them a little extra. Instead of just watering them sufficiently, you're just completely waterlogging them. And again, in a container like this that's very free draining, it comes right out super fast. I mean, look, it's already not fountaining out like that anymore. So just every day or however often you water, just absolutely flood it and let it leach out like that. So that's technique number 2. So just to recap, totally replacing your soil and heavily pruning your plant is one way. Leaching the absolute crap out of it by just watering it an insane amount and leaching all that herbicide out. That's 2. Now the third way, I'm told through all the research I've done, is the most effective. Not that the other ones don't work. I mean, I've done it this way before. I've replaced all the soil and had my next leaves that grew in be perfectly normal, back to normal. And the same thing with leaching. I've leached before, watered the heck out of it, and after I did it for several days, boom, it fixed the problem. So the leaching way and the replacement of the soil way do work, but from what I've read, the final way I'm going to talk about is not only the scientifically most effective, but the quickest way, supposedly. So the third way, like I was saying, is activated carbon. I'll show you that. Okay, so as far as this activated charcoal activated carbon, there's a lot of different sources and ways it's sold. The way I went, or the route I went, is just the pill form that's sold as a supplement. And that's just because it was readily available at my local Walmart, cheap, easy to find, blah, blah, blah. But the main thing that's good about this is it's powder. You want powder, very fine powder, because what happens when you put this activated carbon or activated charcoal down in there, it binds to the herbicide, right? And it washes the herbicide out as you water. Now, some of the herbicide is already going to be bound. It's already bound to the soil or something in the soil. So you won't be able to remove probably all of it, but it removes enough of it to basically let your plant grow normally. So in other words, this is not an exact perfect science or method. Some of it will remain in there, some of it's already bound, but some of it is not. And apparently the binding tendency, or whatever you want to call it, of the herbicide to the activated carbon, that's a stronger tendency, whatever, than the binding to the soil. So I've also read that it essentially unbind, if that's even a word, the herbicide from the soil and bind it to the charcoal. So you want this in a very fine powder form, however you get it. And everything I've read is basically saying there's no exact recipe. So, in other words, it doesn't have to be exact. It's not necessarily going to hurt your plants one way or the other because it's like an inert item. So, the downside of this, there is a downside, is it will bind also to some of your nutrients and fertilizer and stuff that's good in here and wash it away, but that is replaceable. So you can add your fertilizer and nutrients and stuff back into there if you want, very easily. But this is getting rid of the herbicide. So what I would do, everything I've read, it says the best method is to, like, let's say you get, I don't know, 5 tablespoons. Put 1 tablespoon in a gallon of water, put it through there. The next day, another tablespoon in a gallon of water, put it through there. So just break it up over the course of maybe like a week. So what I have here is 60 capsules. So what I'm going to do is 10 capsules in a gallon of water for 6 days straight. Because, again, as I said, I never read anything, and all my research has said it had to be an exact amount. And it's not an overnight process. So it doesn't matter if you put it all in there and dump it all in there. It's not going to get rid of it all at once. So it's better to break it up into manageable amounts. Now, just to be clear, no, I would not put 5 cups in there or something. I mean, you have to kind of use common sense. Even though, no, there's not an exact recipe, it's hard to say, well, this is an exact, lower limit, this is an exact upper limit. I would just say, kind of compare it to, from what I've read, what other people say is kind of compare it to the amounts of fertilizer you use. So let's say water-soluble fertilizer that you use is 1.5 tablespoons per gallon of water. Well, then use a comparable amount of the charcoal, a tablespoon and a half per gallon of water. Just try to keep it reasonable. This is a 18-gallon container, so it probably isn't going to matter too much if you use a decent amount. But I'm just going to use 10 tablets 6 days in a row. And let me show you what that looks like when what you're going to have to do is just open these up and dump that in the water. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is what 10 tablets looks like. Not a whole lot. I'm going to mix that with a gallon of water and show you what it looks like. There you go, guys. Even just 10 tablets, which is not a lot in that picture, makes it just pretty much completely black for a gallon of water. So I'm just going to dump that in there, like so. Let's see. See that? And as it works its way down there through the soil, it's going to bind to those toxins and whatnot and wash them out. And again, it's not going to wash every bit of it out, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if you do that every day for like 6 days, or 5, 6, 7 days, around a week, I probably wouldn't put more than a tablespoon or two, maybe 3 might be pushing it. I mean, that just seems like an awful lot. Just guessing, because again, there's no official formula or official um, recipe, but it seems like that's an awful lot of that stuff to be putting in there. I don't think it would necessarily hurt anything, but I think it's probably good to stay within like 1 or 2 tablespoons, maybe 3, depending on how big your container is. And again, when I put the 10 tablets in there, that wasn't even anywhere near 1 tablespoon, I don't think. It's probably maybe half a tablespoon. But just use your best judgment and, make sure whatever form you get it in or however you get it, it's in a powder form. And sometimes those come in tubs, sometimes in pills, whatever. But yeah, just keep doing that, and that'll bind to and remove the majority of the harmful herbicide over time, over the course of a week, enough to where your plant will go back to growing normal. If it doesn't, add more and just keep doing it. It's not going to hurt anything. I mean, I've done it a million times and I've never had to hurt anything. Like I say, you might have to re-add your fertilizer or whatever, but that's all that's doing is setting you back a little bit. It's not hurting the plant. So there you go. And just in case you guys were wondering, it's hard to even talk or think straight or anything out here right now because it is so insanely humid. But anyway, at least we've covered 3 ways to remove herbicide from your plants: soil replacement and heavy pruning, heavy leaching, watering, and then activated carbon or activated charcoal to water your plants with, to bind to and remove those toxins or remove the herbicide. So anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. Hope the movie, wow, I can't even talk. Hope the video wasn't too bad, and I will see you next time. I hope this helps you with your plants. Again, you can do combinations of this. You can do 1 or 2 or 3 of the things I mentioned, however you want to do it. But at least you know some options now, some ways to get rid of that stuff that's in your soil so you can stop your plants from having these deformed leaves. So see you guys next time, and happy gardening.